Welcome to Perspectives, a podcast by Essence Learning LLC, and a place where leaders learn from leaders. Let's join today's episode.
Welcome to this episode of Perspectives. Today we're going to talk about creating an effective and inclusive culture, and we have gathered three very amazing women to come in and talk about it from their perspective. What does it take to create an effective and inclusive culture? Over the years, we've looked at diversity, equity, inclusion, and oftentimes we've clumped it up, right? We've created that word as diversity, equity, inclusion is one initiative, but they are three separate strategies and initiatives that has to be looked at separately. And when we think about diversity, we think about equity, and we think about inclusion, oftentimes we want to think that it's all one thing. But we're here to talk about inclusion in its entirety in terms of defining it. How does it look in the workplace? What makes it effective in the workplace? And why is it necessary? I'd like to read a quote from O.C.Tanner, which I've read, and I find it to be true in today's workplace, that the workplace culture took major hits over the past 2 years, and new challenges force organizations and human resource leaders worldwide to play defense in ways that they could not have predicted. The global pandemic, the rise of remote work, and its accompanying disconnection, the Great Resignation, and a global cry for more diversity and inclusion, all these things contributed to reshaping our company's cultures. And so when we think about our discussion today, and we think about all of those different disruptions and all of those different components that plays into our new workplace culture, we really want to stop and think and say, we really need to focus on creating an effective and inclusive culture. But how do we do that? Why do we do that? And really, what is it? So I have the three guests today that's going to help dissect those questions and help us to, as an organization and leaders, to walk away with a better understanding of how to create that effective, inclusive work culture. So I'm going to ask you, our panelists, if you would introduce yourself. And while you're introducing yourself, if you could also share with the listeners, in your opinion, what is an inclusive work culture? Workplace culture. I'll add workplace culture in there. So in your opinion, what is an inclusive workplace culture? Who wants to start us off?
I'll go ahead and start us off. I'm so excited to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you. Great conversation that will happen today on this topic. And I am so excited to be here. I have over 18 years experience in education, higher education, and K through 12. I am a presenter, a public speaker, and I love to train and facilitate courses in the local community that I reside in. And this topic brings a smile that you can hear and see today about being inclusive in the workplace. And we all survived the pandemic. So yeah. I'm excited that we can have a testimony to share what we did, whether it was from homeschooling students, and my heart goes out to every parent that had to homeschool students. And for those who were able to transition pretty seamlessly to do their functions at home, but also a great respect for those who could not go 100% remote, like our first responders and in the manufacturing industries. But I say this to share with a smile that we figured it out. We figured out how to make it work and continue with business continuity. And with saying that, I think it's important for effective and inclusive workplace cultures for us to have that workplace balance. Mm-hmm. Many of us had to, again, adjust schedules from our personal time to our family time and our work time. And so many organizations have gone back into the workspace 100%. Some still have 100% remote opportunities, or in some cases hybrid. But I believe by asking our employees, our stakeholders, our vendors, and our community, what should it look like today is important, and that we find a space and place to allow for a balance, and that workplace balance is key. And so that it's not going to be cookie cut. There should be obvious considerations to be very inclusive for accessibility, to access to varying mediums of communication and technology. But I think, again, going back to that one element that I'll start the conversation with today, the workplace balance.
Workplace balance. It seems like you shared that we've been successful in the most part as a country globally, even identifying that balance, redefining what that workplace balance looks like, that hybrid, and then identifying what's important to the people that you work with and for, and who actually encounters your services. That's great. Success has been something we hadn't talked about in this space. How have we been successful in managing that work-life balance? So that's a great point to bring up. Thanks so much for that, Dr. Murphy, and welcome back. You're one of our frequent podcasters, and we love having you on our podcast. Who wants to go next and sharing about a little bit about yourself, and then really sharing with our audience what is an inclusive workplace culture from your perspective?
I'll go. Hello,
All right.
everyone. Thank you so
Hi.
much for the opportunity to
Welcome.
engage in this wonderful conversation. And I echo the same sentiments that this is a very important topic for us to be speaking about today. And so, just a little bit about me is I currently work as an executive director for school administration, which just means I get an opportunity to evaluate and coach principals and work alongside them in their work. I've been a K-12 educator. I've been a teacher, a coach, and athletic coordinator before I was an assistant principal and principal. In addition to that, I also work as an educational consultant where I have the opportunity to do some executive coaching with principal supervisors across the nation. And then I also work as an adjunct professor as well for a couple of different universities. And so today I'm going to be speaking about the inclusive workplace, thinking about from the educator perspective.
Yeah.
And so when I think about diversity and inclusion, I also appreciate our host for reminding us that these are three separate things that we have to speak about, but they all are dependent upon one another. And so when I think about diversity, I just think about, more of the demographics. What is the gender? What is the sex of the person? What is their religious beliefs? What are some of those things? When I think about inclusion, I think about two words. I think about dignity and respect. So I think about how do each of those people who bring a unique, different experiences, who may have this belief when it comes to religion or this belief because of their experiences, how do we empower them and make them feel safe and respected in order to be able to share those different experiences that they've had?
Inclusion and safety to be myself and be my unique self, right? But being treated and embraced by the organization with dignity and respect. And so I think that when we think about what is inclusion and what is an inclusive work culture, safety is key. And safety is key to making sure that I maintain my dignity and my respect and bringing my true self. So thank you for that. And welcome. You're not a frequent one, but we're glad that you've been on board and you're joining us today. We hope to have you back on several more of our podcasts. All right, so we'll go to our well-known Essence Learning podcaster. This is Kiki. Welcome.
Hi. First off, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here and excited to talk about today's topic. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kenitra Kiki Heights. I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion director in the food manufacturing industry, and we're a global business. So we're located in three different I want to say continents, but we're in three different countries. So we are in Canada, US, and then also in Europe as well. And so I also serve as a board member for the San Antonio LGBT Chamber of Commerce. And so when I talk about inclusive culture, and I'm glad, Dr. Lewis, you brought it up when you talked about respect and dignity, because respecting other people's differences is a huge part about it, building that inclusive culture. And it's a part of the whole journey of learning, what your biases are. How do you respect people's differences? How do you manage yourself, empower others, engage in conversation as well to learn what people's cultures are, what their needs are. Everybody has personal needs. They need to be heard. They need to be understood. They need to be valued and respected. And those personal needs are what lead towards building an inclusive culture. Like I said, my Gen Z coworkers like to say, it's just a vibe that you get when you walk into the workplace. And, and that vibe is that not only am I able to share my voice, but my voice is heard, it's listened to, and it's acted upon. And I feel valued. I am engaged in the workplace as well. And then I feel like I belong, which, when we get past that DEI part, the next part is, okay, now I can talk about belonging and that justice part. And so when you go into the workplace and you feel like you belong there because you feel like you fit in and you're respected there at the workplace, that to me is in building that inclusive culture. And it takes leaders to understand how to build that inclusive culture. They have to understand what it means to be an inclusive leader and what I need to do personally as a leader in order to build my inclusive culture.
Wow. So thank you for that, Kiki. So as we think about, combining all of what we've just heard in terms of defining what is an inclusive culture, you all hit on several things. That finding that balance as to what's important to those within your workplace, those that come to work for you, with you, whether it's a vendor, community, however we're encountering your workplace, there needs to be a balance there between getting the job done and between making sure you meet the personal needs of those who are working with you. I've heard that we have to create a safe place, right? That there needs to be a sense of safety for everyone who comes in contact with this workplace. In order for me to feel welcomed and included, I need to first feel safe, that who I show up as will be respected and embraced, and I will maintain the dignity that I deserve as a human being showing up. And then we talked about understanding through awareness and the capacity to understand my own biases and how they show up in the workplace. You talked about I need to be able to manage that. And I loved that you also brought in at the end here, Kiki, around the leadership's role, that, it just doesn't happen. There are leaders have to take on that ownership, that onus of creating an environment where people feel that sense of belonging. And then we also, as employees, if you're an employee, you also have to create that sense of belonging there. So all of those things are really, that vibe that we were talking about. As when I go to a workplace, I sense that I belong. I sense that I'm safe. I sense that there's a balance between getting the work done and meeting the needs of the people. So when we talk about being inclusive and we talk about that, why, that now that I know what it is, share with the audience why that's important to organizations, from wherever organization or whatever industry you're coming from. Why is that important to your industry? Why is that important to your organization, that we create and maintain an inclusive workplace?
I know for us, and for a lot of the organizations that I've been in, that inclusive workplace is so important for employees for several reasons. First of all, it helps attract and retain talent.
Yes.
And so making sure that people stay at organizations. We're in a new and different age and time, and we're in a new, different generational leadership where people are not afraid to leave their jobs if they are not treated right, if they're not paid for what their worth is, if they're not treated in the way that they want to be treated, they will leave you. There is no longer that I am loyal to an organization. They are loyal to themselves. And so having that inclusive culture, build in that sense of attracting and retaining your talent there and attracting new talent, because now people will want to work for your organization because of the way that you treat employees. For us as well, I'm in the production industry, we very much focus on production times and productivity of our products for our employees. And also being in food manufacturing, we have to worry about food safety and security as well. And so when we don't have employees engaged, or they don't value the organization or feel like they belong there, then they lose trust in us. And therefore they take their eyes off of what their job is. They come to work. What is the new term that you're using? I come to work for my worth, not my time, or to be productive. And so with that, we lose productivity. We, just your sense of alertness goes down, and how you're mixing ingredients for us and so forth. So it's important to us that we're very inclusive and that our leaders are seen. They're on the floor, they're walking around, they're talking to people, because we need them to know that we value them and we value their time, and so that they can give 100% of who they are to work. And also come in, part of being that inclusive, when I talk about 100%, is come in to the work. You feel like you come in the workplace bringing 100% of who you are. And so if we want you to operate at 100%, we need you we need to be open for you to be 100% of the person that you are when you come in.
Awesome. I love that. I think I want to step back to the first point that you made, Kiki, around attracting and retaining talent. And we're competing in every industry. And it used to be you just competed within your industry. So if you were in the service industry, you competed for talent in the service industry. If you were in, the retail industry, then that's where but now we're competing across all industries, because now we're learning how to transition talent from industry to industry. And so it's not just competing for your type of work. So if you're in education, I heard you at one point, Kiki, you were an educator at 8th grade, and here you now are in diversity, equity, inclusion, and organization. So we cross over industries. And so our competition for that top talent is huge. And to your point, that people are leaving. And so if we don't create an environment where I feel a sense of belonging, where I can put my loyalty there, and then you moved on from that's not being loyal, but in order to get that loyalty, they have to feel a sense of trust. They've got to trust you. And if without that trust, and you mentioned that they lose their focus on those things that are important to the organization, to the quality, to the mission, to the goals, to what's important to your clients and your customers. And so, it just kind of piggybacks, it links to one another. They build on one another, why it's important. And then you talk about allowing me to bring my 100% of who I am, being present allows me to be 100% contributor to what you need from me as an organization. And so you want 100%, you allow me to bring 100%, and I can give 100%. So what you put in is what you get out, right? And so I love the idea that you brought all those things. Those are all very important characteristics. Again, just rewording what you said, just to put emphasis on it. But thank you so much for that. Who wants to go next and sharing why, particularly from your perspective, your industry inclusive culture is important? It's imperative to have.
Great questions. And I'm smiling because I'm thinking of how I can add and piggyback off of what we've just heard. I'll look at it from a small business owner perspective, and looking at how important it is for continuous improvement, to the points that we've heard from Kiki about retention and attraction and keeping the employees. When you're a small business owner, that may just be one other person, if that. And so it's important for business continuity and for brand awareness and recognition in your space and your business vertical to have some type of consistency. I can tell you from personal experience, when you onboard new talent, there's a training curve, and it may take a month, it may take a year to get that person or persons in a safe and comfortable place where they feel competent and that they're able to function without being handheld. And if that retention doesn't happen, you're going to have turnover. And so I think it's really important, again, for that recognition to be there to say, okay, what can I do to make this work experience and this journey for you as my employee, as my contractor, as my business partner, to be inclusive for you, and to really be able to take in what someone tells you or people tell you and make the behavioral change within your workspace and your work culture, within your organization, within yourself, to make that change and to really hold yourself accountable to ensuring that the change isn't just one time to check a box and to say that we've done it, but that those behaviors are being lived out every single day, and that there's always an opportunity for learning and for improvement.
Well, thank you for that, Dr. Murphy. As you think about that small business that you bring up, that they have to also have an inclusive workplace. And I like that you linked the term consistency and continuity to that word around, to having that inclusive work culture. So that when particularly that small business has 1, 2, 3 people, there's consistency that they all offer to their clients or to their community or to whomever they're serving. So when you think about consistency and continuity, even though we're talking about in a small business perspective, that spreads out and expands and really pertains to any organization, no matter what your size is. So I like that you connected the terms and the thought around being consistent and providing that continuity is what an inclusive workplace will bring to us, because we know what to expect. We can all get engaged in making it happen and bringing it forward. So even small businesses, this is not just a discussion or a culture that's created in a large work environment. We're talking about in every aspect of our business. So thank you for bringing that to the table as well. And Dr. Lewis, what's your thoughts?
Wow, I'm just sitting here smiling because I'm taking it all in.
It's
There's
good
so many
stuff.
comments, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm going to add value because there's been so many great comments shared. You know, when I think about the importance of it, I think about it for many different reasons. I think about how important it is for people who are part of an organization to know and to truly believe that their leaders or their colleagues see them for who they are and
Mm,
accept them for who they are, and that they appreciate what they bring, whatever experiences, whatever beliefs, whatever that they bring, that they understand that it's going to be a mutually beneficial
mhm,
partnership, because I see you for who you are, I accept you, and I need you to be my thought partner in this work. So as I continue to think about that, I think about when we're more inclusive, it just helps us all grow, right? Because we
mhm,
do have unique experiences depending on what we believe in, where what walks of life we come from, what how old we are, what race or ethnicity we are. And so
mhm,
I think about, as I serve on a board for the North San Antonio Chamber of Commerce, the leadership lab portion of it. And I think about how important it is to just have a great balance of people with
mhm,
unique experiences. And the reason I'm going to say particular for that is because some of the leaders and the speakers that we've had, we want to move away from always having the exact same type of leaders, maybe who look the same or sound the same. Who can bring a unique perspective. And so when you are more inclusive and people feel comfortable and confident about being able to share, maybe we should go in this different direction or be
mhm.
able to have those different conversations. It really is for the good of all, for the people who are going to be a part of this group to be able to benefit from it. I really appreciate also, I think it was Kiki that said earlier, when she said something, it really made me think about the word authenticity. It's
Mhm.
important that we know that when people are saying that we belong or they value us, that we feel that what they're saying is authentic,
Authentic.
that they are truly respecting us for who we are, that it's not just to check a box and say, yes, I have somebody from, this sex, this I have somebody from this race, this ethnicity, this
Yeah.
age, that is truly authentic because they know that being more inclusive and respecting people for who they are is
Mhm.
going to help the organization. So those are just the thoughts that came to my mind. And
Great conversation. And so I love that you brought up, Dr. Lewis, the idea that there's that partnership. And so when I hear the word partnership, then I also mean that there's a dual responsibility in this role, right? That we all are in this together. And we talk about inclusivity and we're being included and we're all included in the moving our organization forward as partners in this, then we're walking lockstep and taking responsibility for our own culture. And I oftentimes in the training that we go through, people, will often say, well, whose responsibility is it to create this culture? If I believe this way and I think this way and I do it this way, and we have this different approach, and I can come as my authentic self and you're coming as yours, and we're so different. Whose responsibility is it to connect us to create that inclusive environment? And so I have my own responses to that, but I really wanted to kind of bring that up as part of our conversation as we start going towards the end of our 30 minutes together. And I know that our time is seems so short when we get in these great conversations, but I want to spend the last 5 minutes or so actually talking about how do we connect if we're in partnership. As you talked about, if we are bringing diverse groups in front of us and we're showing up authentically, and I just have a different approach, a different lifestyle, a different viewpoint, a different vision. How do I bring all of that into a place where, we talked about dignity, respect. We talked about being inclusive in terms of a sense of belonging, making it safe, being an advocate, removing our biases. All of those things are great. But when they're so different, how do we connect all of that? Are there any tips that we can leave before we end today to talk about, hey, we understand the importance of it, we understand what it is, and this is how we connect the dots so that we could create it? What tips would you like to leave to our audience?
So I'll start with answering that question, and
Hey,
I'm sure we can spend hours on this
yeah.
topic. It's so amazing. I think from my experiences and the thoughts that come to mind, a tip that I would share that could be a starting point is to do a lot of self-work. And I
Ah,
say that with a smile. We are so dynamic in background, from leaders to small business owners to educators, consultants, that we can pretty much work together seamlessly and collaboratively to create a strategy. I always think of how important it is to start with ourselves. What are some of the areas and gaps within our own personal lives and experiences and our own biases that would hinder us from being a value added component when it comes to creating a strategy for an inclusive workplace? And when we're able to retool ourselves and self-reflect and really be very vulnerable, and I use the word vulnerable very sparingly because it's tough, to come to ourselves and to others for help with evaluation and recommendations on what we can do differently. I'll share, really quickly from coming throughout my career of really working hard from educational and just personal journeys to do different things. We land in different spaces in life. But until we're able to stop and reflect and make a personal change and again be authentic, we heard the term a few moments ago with what we need to do better, we're just really not going to put forth the effort that we need to. So I think the first tip, and for me the most important tip, would be that self-reflection for ourselves to identify our gaps and our opportunities within our own behaviors.
That's awesome. So identify self work first, I think is what you named
Yes.
it, and identifying where our gaps are and then retooling ourselves to get back out there and make it happen. Awesome. That's very, very good tip for us as individuals, as leaders, from a personal and as well as a professional perspective, as well as organizations that say you're thinking about where are our gaps as an organization. When you're in that boardroom, do that self work first from an organizational perspective as well. Where are we as an organization? Where are our gaps and what do we need to retool? And if to be inclusive. So that's good advice on all levels. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Murphy. What else do we have as a tip to
Dr.
leave before
Murphy,
we exit?
thank you for
Yeah,
saying that, because it all starts with self, right? And sometimes that's
yes,
difficult to look at ourselves and realize that there are areas of deficit or that we have blind spots, but we all do. And so,
yes.
similarly, I'm going to say the word that comes to my mind that we could spend hours and hours on is really recognizing and not being afraid to say we all have biases, right?
Mm,
And starting there, and then having those tough conversations around the table when things feel like they're not inclusive, and drawing attention to that, not to make anybody feel ostracized or to judge anyone, but just to help people realize the importance of having an inclusive workplace, but then bringing out those times when we feel that it's not, and then working together on a strategic plan to find out how we can make it feel more inclusive. And that includes bringing each person's voice back to the table. So
mm.
circling back around full circle, how do you feel we can make this more inclusive? How do you feel bringing that all together and work collaboratively on a plan?
Awesome. So, first starting with biases, and then you just kind of turned around and ended with what's the voice that's going to help us overcome those biases and bring back the solutions and create an inclusive workplace. So have those tough conversations once you've identified your biases, and maybe even have the conversations with others if you start to see that there's biases that are bringing barriers to an inclusive workplace. So it may not be yours, but it may be someone else's that you need to have that conversation with. And then bringing those voices to the table to ask, what do you need? And I'm not going to guess. What do you want? I'm not going to guess. Bring it out to the table so that we all have that voice and have that conversation about creating an inclusive workplace. So self-work, have the conversation around our biases, bring in the other voices so that we're not guessing anymore, that we all know what our personal needs are. Okay, Kiki, we've got some great tips out there. What do you have for us?
Those are amazing tips, and I'm going to try to contribute the best that I can, as they covered a lot of ground. And I'm going to try to do it in a three-pronged approach. So, I would, for organizations, first off, if you're making decisions for an organization, I would not be remiss if I did not advocate for you to hire people that have DEI backgrounds or create a DEI position. Cannot stress that far enough. You need someone there to help you connect the dots. You need
That's
someone
right.
there to help you hold that pencil, to connect the dots, to bring you the training, to bring you activities, to bring people together, and to also hold you accountable for your actions as well. So for organizations, I highly, highly recommend that, not because it's a performative thing to do, but it's the actionable and the business minded thing to do. For leaders, I think, one of the most important things is to get yourself education. And that's something your DEI person can do as well. But I know, like, for example, Essence Learning has some great classes on helping you understand your personal biases and how to manage that, as well as respecting others and their differences as well. You can always go to essencelearning.net to check that out. But taking that approach of self-learning, like Jeannie said, you have to focus on yourself and be self-aware. That includes learning as well, and learning the tips and the skills and the tools to do it, but not also learning it, but like taking it in and making it a practice and making it a regimen of your leadership skills as well. And then for employees, my tip would be like, be confident and have a voice. If you know that you don't feel inclusive or you don't feel belonging, don't just sit there and go along with everything and then be miserable, because now you're working in a miserable environment when you need to say something. Stand up for yourself, be confident, know how to go and approach leadership and have those conversations and be able to make and create change as well. So those are my tips of advice.
Awesome. So I'll just wrap that up. Thank you all so much. When we think about your role as an organization to create some accountability for yourself, hire that person that has the skills and expertise to hold you and your organization responsible for creating an inclusive workplace. They're that person who's keeping the eye on the ball for you. You also are thinking about, how do I create an awareness and education for our leaders to help support them in this space? Because we all need support in this, in how to reconnect, particularly as changes that we've talked about have disconnected us in so many ways. How do I do that quickly and effectively? I often have to have those skills. And then when we talked about us as employees, be confident, use your voice. Don't sit back and be a part of the problem. Actively be a part of the solution. All great tips, from self-worth to having the conversations to hiring those skills and holding yourself accountable. Please visit us at essencelearning.net. Thank you all, Dr. Lewis, Dr. Murphy, and Kiki, for joining us today on this session. I hope that I know that everyone has taken away some great tips. Until next time, I wish you well.
Thank you for joining Perspectives, a podcast by Essence Learning LLC. Essence Learning is your solution to personal and professional development. We partner with our clients to develop a learning strategy that will increase productivity, enhance performance, and align with their purpose and goals. For more information, visit us online at essencelearning.net or call us at 1-877-657-5755.